Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Bogdan here, your biased host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining in. And guys, without begging you to hit those small vanity buttons below this video, allow me to cover the imports and the exports of Argentina for 2023. And basically, we will see the top 10 largest positive and negative changes relative to the trading partners, along with the largest changes in what concerns the actual export product. So first things first, let's start with the largest absolute positive changes for the export flow. And it seems that the exports towards Uruguay had the largest absolute positive change, some $169 million, bringing thus the overall exports for 2023 to some $1.7 billion. On the second spot, we see here Switzerland with an absolute positive change of almost $104 million relative to 2022. And the third spot was taken by Peru with some $100 million more exports towards this destination, bringing thus the overall exports to some $2.5 billion. And the list, top 10 list goes on with countries like, I don't know, Honduras or Bahamas, and ends here with Georgia, to whom Argentina managed to export with some $17 million more, bringing the overall exports to some $38 million, which is the largest value in this 10 years time frame, having a 13.45% compound annual growth rate, which is really good, even though in absolute terms, let's face it, guys, the values are not that high. Anyways, these were the top 10 absolute positive changes relative to Argentina's exports. Now let's take a look at the negative side as well. And here we see that the exports towards China had the largest absolute contraction. And we have some $2.75 billion. India followed with some $2.1 billion, and the podium, let's say, ends with the Netherlands, who had a $2 billion contraction, bringing the overall exports towards this particular destination to almost $1.56 billion. Most probably, if you ask me, regressing to the mean value of the pre-pandemic exports, so pre-2020. Other significant absolute negative changes that make it to this top 10 list are in relation to Indonesia or South Korea, and ends here with the United Arab Emirates, to whom Argentina exported with some $620 million less relative to 2022, thus bringing the overall export value to some $330 million, but still on the positive territory in what concerns the compound annual growth rate for the last 10 years, as we have a positive 5.15%. And if I'm looking carefully in this top 10 list, we have only four, let's count the negative 0.12% corresponding to the Netherlands. So we have only four countries in these last 10 years who had a negative compound annual growth rate, three of which with relatively low overall exports. So I'm talking about the Netherlands, Indonesia, and Algeria. And if we exclude these three particular countries, it remains only Brazil, who overall had a negative 1.57% compound annual growth rate. But if we look closely at the annual figures, yes, for these last 10 years, we see more or less $10 billion worth of exports towards this destination on average annually. So quite important for Argentina to maintain and develop a stable trade relation with Brazil. So guys, these were the dynamics for the export flow, and now I will take a look at the import flow as well, and I will start with the positive changes. And here we see Paraguay leading the way with some $1.8 billion more imports in 2023. Brazil follows with some $1.3 billion, and on the third spot we have here Vietnam with some $165 million. And then the list goes on with countries like, I don't know, Italy or Lithuania, and ends here with Hungary, from whom Argentina managed to import with some $36 million more relative to the previous year, bringing the overall imports from this location to almost $285 million. Moving now, guys, to the negative side of Argentina's exports, we see here that on a year-on-year basis, the imports from China suffered the most. We are speaking about $2.2 billion less imports in 2023. Those from the United States came second with some $1.6 billion contraction, and the podium ends with Bolivia with $1 billion fewer imports. And from what I see here, it has also the largest negative figure relative to the compound annual growth rate for these last 10 years, which is almost 8%. And we see this in the trend line as well, as Bolivia's largest export value was registered way back in 2014, while for the rest of 9 countries, I don't know, the maximum was achieved in 2022, so quite different patterns. Anyways, I thought it's worth pointing out. I'm not going to dig further. Instead, guys, I will move to the product level, let's say. And here we have the dynamics for the positive changes from the export flow, where crude petroleum registered the largest absolute positive change of some $437 million. It was followed by heading 8703. So we are talking about passengers vehicles, and the third spot is taken by vehicles for the transport of goods. So heading 8704 with some $208 million positive change relative to 2022. And the list goes on with petroleum gas or olive oil, and the top 10 list ends here with heading 1502. So we are talking about fats of bovine animals, sheep or goats, who saw almost a $39 million expansion from, I don't know, $46 million in 2022 to some $84.6 million in 2023, which is also the largest exported amount in this 2019-2023 timeframe. And guys, if you're wondering what country drove most of this increase, I will tell you that it was the United States, with some $43 million worth of exports towards this destination. Anyways, guys, moving now to the negative side, we have here the covert heading 9999. So we are talking about commodities not elsewhere specified because either the importer or the exporter required so. And we have here some $6 billion contraction. On the second spot, we have heading 1005, maize or corn, with some $3 billion, while the third spot is taken by oilcake with almost $2.9 billion contraction, which is almost 40% lower than the figures of 2022. And the top 10 list goes on with wheat and maislin, or meat of bovine animals, frozen. And here, let's not forget that Argentina has a big comparative advantage here. and it ends with heading 0402, so concentrated milk or cream with almost $186 million contraction, but still managing a positive compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years of 4.4%. And the same holds true for heading 9999 and 1007, both with double-digit compound annual growth rates. Jumping now, guys, to the import flow. On the positive side, we see soybeans, so heading 1201, who registered the largest absolute positive value of some $3.3 billion. It was followed by heading 8708, and I'm talking here about parts and accessories for tractors, with some $634 million positive change. And on the third spot, we have heading 8419. So machinery, plant or laboratory equipment with almost $211 million positive change, some 114% more. And the top 10 list goes on with headings like, I don't know, centrifuges or tubes and pipes, and ends here with machinery for sorting, screening, or separating. So heading 8474, who in 2023 registered an absolute positive change of some $74 million, up almost 94% from the previous year. As for the compound annual growth rate, again for the last 5 years, we have mostly double-digit positive figures, except for heading 8503, who had a negative 20% change, down some 2/3 from the 2019 peak. So guys, these were the positive changes for the import flow, and the last sheet that I will cover in this episode concerns the negative changes. Of course, I had to cover them as well, where heading 2710 registered the largest absolute negative change of some $3 billion. It was followed by by his not so famous cousin, petroleum gas, who had a contraction of some $1.5 billion. And the podium ends here with mineral or chemical fertilizers, so heading 3105 with some $661 million contraction. Other headings who made it in this not so fortunate top 10 list include nitrogenous fertilizers or coal, and ends here with heading 8517, so smartphones basically, who had a $215 million contraction in 2023, bringing the overall imports to some $2.3 billion, but still managing a positive compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years of 6%. And guys, with this last sheet being covered as well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've made it till the end. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit those small vanity buttons below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.